So, Sonic 251 of Archie Sonic Online was released recently as of, I would say, today, or whenever you watch this, yesterday. And it's actually a pretty decent issue. I know a lot of people were waiting for this issue to be released by Archie Sonic Online, but if there's one thing about doing online comics, especially when you try to get, the issues distributed during a pandemic, is patience, becomes a big time virtue. And in the end, I have to say they did a decent job here. The story basically is very Geoffroy St. John Nagus centric. Basically, as we saw in the official book before its cancellation, and as we see here in the online continuation, the mutations in Nagus are starting to really take over. And the mutations are brought on by the fact that, as we found out in the official comic, as well as continued here in the online comic, Nagus's body is actually comprised of three different spirits, if you will. It's comprised of three different spirits. And, he's trying to control his body. He's trying to take back control of his body from these spirits, basically prevent them from taking over. So he needs power, if you will, or needs new vessels, bodies, if you will, to make sure that he has a body to contain these other beings that are trying to take over, these other spirits. So temporarily, as we saw in the official book and continued here in the online continuation, he basically possessed Geoffroy. And for a time, that seemed to work, except over time we started noticing that even Geoffroy's body was becoming unstable to hold the host Nagus's soul, his body, if you will, within his. So basically that's what this issue does. It picks up in that vicinity of, the mutations are getting worse, and everybody is trying to figure out, okay, where do we go from here? And we find out that Nicole is tasked with creating some inhibitor rings to help Nagus's power out, or else, he'll turn the city against her. And, we find out that the freedom fighters want to take the next step and try to locate Bunny. And, Sally, Sonic and Sally pretty much are pretty much convinced that she went to her uncle in the DEL, where Sally assumes she's safe for the time being. And and hopefully, and again, they want to plan out to try to get her back. They even talk about, how Antoine is, they've tried everything they could to revive Antoine, and that one of the best options that they would have is the Chaos Emerald that Nagus has, that basically de-roboticized and uncrystallized Bunny originally in the official book. And at first, Nagus is very reluctant of that, until Geoffroy thinks out loud, not knowing Nagus is, overhearing him, or can hear his thoughts, starts realizing, is this the reason, he had the crystal around, or he had the emerald around, and why he took over my body and everything, and, is that, that could this, basically Geoffroy's assuming that everything that's going on with the emerald connected is the reason that Nagus is, still kind of in control, of his sanity for the time being. And like I said, Nagus overhears this and pretty much takes what Geoffroy was saying out loud as a great solution, a great idea to his problem, his predicament, and that is to inhabit the body of Antoine, who is right now in a coma. So Sally, Sally, at her behest, wants to go and be by Antoine's side, whenever he wakes up, and whenever Bunny returns, to be by his side as well. And Geoffroy, actually Nagus, through Geoffroy, says one of the cruelest things you could think of. He basically, brings up the fact that she was Eggman's little puppet. And, would you trust her basically to be in the room of the person she nearly killed, as well as to wait on the person she drove away? And by saying this kind of stuff, it upsets everybody, upsets Sonic. Sonic goes after Sally because she runs off crying. And Geoffroy, Nagus actually through Geoffroy, tries to play it off by saying, hey, what did you expect? Heck, you all feel the same way, trying to put the blame on them as well. And what we get throughout this, when Nagus, forces these things out of Geoffroy's mouth, basically forces Geoffroy to say these things, we see Geoffroy, basically a prisoner in his own body, crying a little bit, breaking down, because he's not that kind of a person. He would never say that kind of stuff to Sally, because let's not forget, at one point he was in love with Sally himself, so he doesn't like saying. So we know he would never say that kind of stuff to her. Yeah, but Nagus just basically says it, and you would think, with everything going on, with that, and you think what was going on earlier at the beginning of the issue, where Geoffroy was sitting in for Nagus, and basically, they having this council meeting about what to do next, and Penelope is one of the first to stand up and speak up about the whole suspiciousness, but then Nagus uses his magic to kind of wipe her mind, or basically change her mind or something. You would think that all these suspicious, all the suspicious, changes and, things being said and stuff like that would be, somebody would catch on to it. Excuse me. Someone would catch on to it, but nobody does. And it looks like Silver at first is the one that's catching on, but what Silver is doing, when he meets up with Geoffroy, he's telling Geoffroy, man, you got to get away from Nagus. Nagus is going to lead you down a path, that you don't want to go down. And he tells him this because he wants to also thank him for helping them out to try to get back the city, back control of the city, or basically figure out what Nagus was doing, before he was able to do it. And of course, Nagus, hearing this, calls Geoffroy out as a traitor. But even in the official book, we started noticing Geoffroy was having second guesses, basically second thoughts about his allegiance here. So in the online continuation, like here in 251, we kind of see that all coming to fruition. Like, he's being, very more reluctant and more judgmental about what he's doing. Like, this is not what he agreed to do when he aligned himself with Nagus. Anyway, long story short, we get Nagus going over to Antoine's hospital room in Geoffroy's body, getting ready to, use the emerald to possess Antoine's body and leave Geoffroy's. But then that's when the mysterious visitor that we see at the very beginning of the issue, who says that, tells her dear to hold on, she's coming, or they're coming, I should say. That's when that individual shows up. Now, in between all this, again, let's go back to Nicole talking about the inhibitor rings she's making for Nagus. Basically, we find out around the same time that Harvey who put the Secret Freedom Fighters together, basically tells Geoffroy that now is the time. And not Geoffroy, but Elias, I should say, tells Elias that now is the time. And Elias is like, well, what do you mean? And Harvey Hugh basically says, he basically straight out tells Elias, you need to kill Nagus. Like, we are at a point right now, we have an advantage right now that we cannot overlook. We cannot, pass up. And he basically tells Elias that I know it's hard for you to do this. He even talks to him in private, asks the other team members to leave them alone for a moment. And again, he tells them and he tells Elias, look, I know it's hard, but you know this has to be done. And if you want any more confirmation, talk to those who are your friends and your teammates to get better confirmation about what you have to do. And that's what he does. Elias, he goes talks to Nicole, he goes talks to Uncle Chuck, he talks to Shard again. He talks to everybody that's been in a similar situation, and they both basically agree that this has to be done. I mean, in fact, Harvey Hu even says, before he talks to Elias alone, that he met with the team earlier, and then he does apologize for that, but he met with the team earlier to discuss this, and Elias, again, going around and meeting with them separately, as well as other people that have been in similar predicaments, whether or not, they should be taken out because of what happened to them. Elias does finally make up the decision that, okay, I understand now, I do have to do this, and he goes to his father's room, basically King Max's room, and King Max is just laying there in his wheelchair, like asleep, like very comatosely asleep. I don't know where the mother is, Queen Alicia is, but Geoffrey just takes this, not Geoffrey, but Elias takes the sword. He has tears in his eyes because he knows what he's about to do is wrong, but he also knows it's for the benefit of the kingdom. Now, around this same time, we go back to the hospital room where Antoine's at, and Geoffrey Nagus, if you will, is about to take over his body. I talked about that figure that showed up at the beginning of the issue and said that, told their deer to hold on, that they were coming. We find out that is indeed Hershey the cat. And pretty much Hershey comes in, she sees what's happening. She says, she's glad Geoffrey's alive and everything. She sees what happened to Antoine. And obviously this is enough to finally break Geoffrey free, or at least weaken Nagus, not only break Geoffrey free of Nagus's control, but weaken Nagus enough to where the spirits that were trying to take over his body, that are basically he's comprised of, finally see the opening and take over. Basically, they take control. They say, hey, they tell Nagus, you're unfit. Like, you're unfit. You're weak. You're not what you used to be. We're taking over now, and that's what they do. And they literally lunge they literally mutate Geoffrey's body. And just before this happens, Geoffrey's telling her, hey, you got to get out of here. Nagus is controlling my body and everything. And then again, that's enough an opening for the spirits to take control, mutate his body just enough to where he lunges at Hershey. He doesn't kill her, but he grabs her, knocks her out, and grabs her, puts her in his crab hook, if you will. And all of a sudden you see this big old storm happening above the castle, and the roof breaking off and everything. And what you get at the end is a mutated Geoffrey St. John holding an unconscious Hershey in his claw arm. And it's the spirits, through Geoffrey, saying to the citizens of Mobotropolis, surrender your bodies or this woman's life, or this woman dies. This woman's blood is on your hands, kind of deal. So basically they're telling them at the end, through a mutated Geoffrey, hey, surrender your bodies as our vessels to control, or this woman dies. So that's basically how the issue ends. And the next issue will be continued, hopefully sooner than a year. We'll put it that way. Hopefully they've worked on it the same time they worked on this one. So maybe we'll get it a lot sooner than another year. Maybe at the end of the year. Who knows? But yeah, it was a pretty good continuation. I'll say this: it was worth the wait. And Hershey's return obviously was predictable because, Ian Flynn has even gone on record with you like the guy or you don't. He's gone on record by saying that he was planning to bring Hershey back. That the cloaked figure the figure that Sonic and Tails and Amy were going to encounter while they were traveling the world, that instead of being Lita and Lyko of the wolf pack, that it was going to be Hershey, and she was going to go with them, or she was going to be part of the Secret Freedom Fighters or something. But then, of course, the behind the scenes issues occurred, behind the scenes issues with the comic occurred, and that screwed up a lot of stuff. But yeah, here, the people behind Archie Sonic Online fulfilled that obligation, brought her back, but now put her into a situation to where her life's on the line. Basically, her life is basically being used as a bargaining chip, by the spirits, by having them telling the citizens, hey, let us take control of your bodies, and we'll let this one live, or something like that. So, it's a really it's really intriguing. It's a really intriguing story that gets you really invested to see what happens next. And honestly, I think they did a great job here. It feels. I've said this before. I'll say it again. It feels like a decent continuation of the Archie Sonic lore, and that this feels like an actual issue of Sonic the Hedgehog by Archie Comics. And again, hopefully we don't have to wait another year for the next issue to come out, and we'll see what they have planned going forward. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. Let me know how you feel about Archie Sonic Online 251 in the live chat during the premiere. And also, they are currently working on the Universe arc, which ties into this, which focuses on Bunny. So check that out when it happens. But again, let me know what your thoughts are overall. Comment down below. Live chat in the premiere. Like the video. And I am out. Also, check out Crystal Maiden 77's review on 251. I think you'll enjoy it. So, till next time, guys, take care, and I am out.